All right, we're back, and this is the Transition Podcast, Man to God, and I'm here with a special guest, Mister. How do you pronounce your name exactly? I don't want to get it wrong. Let's get it right. How do you pronounce your name?
No worries, man. Philip or any variation of Philip, I'm happy with.
Filip. All right, what's your last name? How do you pronounce your last name?
Last name is Perica, but if someone says Perica, also fine.
So, our new guest today is Filip, and he is a rugby star internationally in France, but he's originally from Croatia. And, he has a story. He has a story of transitioning from as an athlete. And we always talk about athlete transitioning and also, that transitioning from sports to business. And he has a tale to tell. We all have tales to tell when we talk about athletes trying to better themselves and go into other avenues of business. But we have a testimony today that he will be able to jump right into and help a lot of you guys understand perspective of what it takes, what we go through as athletes, even if you're not an athlete, what we go through when it comes to pouring all our blood, sweat, and tears into the performance, the preparation, the practice, paying attention, and then going into the business world and having to apply that same type of, ambition, that same type of attention to detail into business that's totally different. You have to change from competitive to creative. And Filip is going to, talk about these things, man. And I want to just give him the platform to talk about himself and introduce himself and, tell us a little bit about where you are in France, coming from Croatia, the differences, and let's just jump into it.
Let's do it. All right. Thanks for such a warm welcoming. Rashad also. I pronounce your name right?
Yes, sir.
Rashad. Perfect. Yeah, so my sports story is quite unique. I mean, obviously, I come from a little country of Croatia. I mean, we're only 4 million of people, and obviously playing rugby. I mean, at the moment in Croatia, there's maybe only 5 clubs in a whole country being active, and probably less than 500 active registered players. So from there to being able, to go and play internationally, and I've been in UK for 4 years as well, and now I'm in France. It's a big deal. So why don't I tell everyone how it happened and how it can happen to anyone?
How old are you? Just to interject, tell them how old you are, just so they can get a sense of, where you started, at what age you started, and where you are as far as right now.
Sure. So at the moment, I'm 24, but I feel like I'm 50. I think that's what every athlete says.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm 24 and I've started playing rugby relatively early when I was 7. However, I only count my real rugby days when I went abroad.
Right.
Just because the quality of the coaching and playing and rugby culture, that's when I actually was in the middle of all of it. So even though I value my days back in Croatia, they were very, I need to be honest, even though I love my coaches and clubs, they were very limited compared to a rugby culture in abroad. Let's get to the story, how I got into rugby and why rugby at the end of the day in such a small country.
Right.
So as most of the viewers know, if they know Croatia, they know the Croatian football team. Somehow we got to the world finals of World Cup last time. I don't know how, we're crazy enough to get there. But with such a small country and one big sport, it's very, very hard for other sports. And not only for rugby, even basketball. Players in terms of media exposure are struggling to be in the same foot with football players, not to even mention and handball, volleyball. So rugby is like below all of these other sports.
Right.
And obviously that comes with some challenges, but basically you're gonna know this story is crazy. We're crazy enough to go on first floor, second floor, all these materials. And I climbed this big fence on the garage door and it wasn't attached. So it fell down and I felt with it. And it went straight to my femur, and I smashed my right femur bone when I was 6. Now, obviously, I was growing up at the time, and I was a kid in just growing up, and it had a lot of long-term effects on my right leg. And with me coming back from recovery, I was very slow. My running technique was inappropriate. I was getting exhausted very, very quickly, and I didn't enjoy football. I was the slowest kid on the block. I didn't enjoy basketball. Everyone had much quicker feet than me. However, on rugby, I just catch a ball, I go straight, I do my thing, and I was happy. So I was lucky enough to have a couple local boys going into my brother's class and recruit the rugby kids. And they came in all buffed up, big muscles. And they said, listen, if you guys come and play rugby, you're going to become huge like us. And now, obviously, all the kids came to the rugby. And I just did what any younger brother did. I just tagged along. I followed my older brother. So all of a sudden, I'm playing a sport I never heard of, never seen of, have no clue what the rules are, but I'm out there playing it, doing my thing. At this point, going through the club, and all of a sudden, I'm becoming better and better with time. So I was building confidence. And the under 18 national team came in. I was in. Great. Things are looking good. And I actually wanted to go to a sports science school in Croatia. But in order to get in, I need to pass some physical exams like swimming, running. It's a bit crazy as well.
Right.
And just before the exams, I had a country finals, national finals in rugby sevens, and I broke my ankle.
Wow.
Just before. And obviously back then, looking at it, my world crashed. I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to go to university except me. I'm going to have to wait for a whole year. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you know what? Nah. Screw the uni. I'm going abroad. I gave my life in rugby. I want to try. Now, interesting story is, as I was trying to recover, so they put 2 screws in my right ankle. As I was trying to recover too quickly, I managed to break the screws as well.
Wow.
So even today, I have broken screw in my ankle. Thanks God, it's not an issue. Sometimes when weather changes, I can feel it.
Right.
So I'm like a magician. I can feel day before when the weather is gonna change. But it's not an issue, thanks God. And I was 18, one-way ticket to UK. I found the club online. I made a little video footage of myself playing. They were like, you know what? We'll give you a chance. Chance was all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to have enough confidence to go. One-way ticket, UK, 18, broken ankle, I'm gone.
Let's rewind for a second. You said one-way ticket, UK, footage of highlight reel of what you do, sent it in.
Yeah.
The rest is history.
The rest is history, man.
So that shows a testimony that you took the first step. The first step was, I'm going to decide that I'm going to get out of here.
Exactly.
And then I'm going to decide not to be afraid to just shoot my shot. I'm going to send my footage I'm going to go online first and look for a club. Exactly. Then I'm going to send them my footage and hope for the best.
Yeah. And for all of us, all of you guys listening, especially like younger kids in your sport, I've sent over 50 emails. It wasn't the first email. I've sent over 50 videos. It was a process. This didn't happen overnight. And with me breaking my ankle, and I had nothing to lose, really. I was very, very frustrated, very angry. And I was like, I have nothing to lose. I need to go. So what happens. And I'm glad I kind of left that comfort zone because I'm here where I am now. So I don't know if you watched that Butterfly Effect movie with with Ashton Kutcher. If I didn't break my ankle, maybe I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
So I'm quite happy I did, in a way.
And what type of, in making that decision, let's go back for you.
Sure.
When you made that decision to just pick it all up and go, what emotions were you going through? Like people need to understand, like, when you face these type of decisions, what you're going to be facing. Like, you're going to be facing doubt. You're going to be facing fear. You're going to be facing, oh, am I going to be homeless? Where am I going to stay? I don't know anyone. How did you go about that aspect of it when it comes to like the thought process going through
it? That's a very good question. And most of the questions you asked me, I started answering when I was on the plane. Because I didn't think about it. My whole world just collided. My ankle is broken. I tried getting back. Things were going good. My screws are now broken. Back to stage 1. I'm again in a race of time. So I didn't even answer some of these questions. All I know, my father he's a big sportsman as well. And he said, go son, do it. And he grew up in Yugoslavia. Back then it was Yugoslavia. It was a combination of a couple of countries. It was very, very, it was a tough time to grow up when he grew up. So he kind of didn't have any worries for me. He said, "Son, you need to go." But my mom was very, very worried. Injured son, 18, and she tried to convince me not to go. I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna prove my worth. If nothing happens, I'll return home. But for me, there was no plan B. There was only plan A. I took that kind of attitude,
Oh,
and luckily it worked out, man. Luckily it worked out. I got there. It was a London 1 division, which is not the highest, but not the worst. It was a pretty good level to be, and some of the boys there have been playing for years, so they were in their comfort zone of playing that level. But I came there to prove myself, and I was much more hungrier than them to show what I'm worth. So in a way, with all this attitude that I had, it made me push myself, and coaches see me better, you know?
right, right. So let's talk about the logistics of it though. Let's talk about, okay, you made the decision. How much money did you have to make that decision? Did your parents help you along the way? Let's just talk about another 18-year-old, feels just
Sure,
like
sure.
you, needs to make
Exactly.
this type of decision.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
does he need to do in preparation to make that move? Like, does
Okay.
he have to call ahead, find a place that, he can afford,
Hmm.
the train, the plane ticket, the people in the city. You don't know anybody there. You don't even know anybody at the club.
No, no
You
one.
just all you have is the address and in hopes to make it. Like, talk about that part, like what you went through in that side, even if you did get money from your parents and all that. Just talk about that process.
Exactly. Sure. So first of all, I did make a bold decision, but I did have support from my family, which is huge, which is huge. And my family, even back then, they didn't have a lot of money, but they had enough money to help me up with a ticket and just with a little bit until I get settled. But they were never able to fund me for the whole time. It was me who had to eventually get an extra job and etc.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the numbers itself, I remember ticket to London and getting there altogether was probably around £200. That's probably around $315. And on side, I had $400, which should be
Mm-hmm.
enough to cover my food for the first 2 months. However, club promised they're going to help me with accommodation, which is very funny. In the end, the accommodation was a caravan at the vegetable field.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back to it, was hilarious. So basically, one of the presidents in the club, they had this whole farm with food, with vegetable and fruits. And usually every summer they would get a bunch of people from abroad to come and work summer job. So he emptied a couple of those little caravans for international rugby boys. So, but that was also a big thing. So I had somewhere to sleep at. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a flat, but I had someone to
Absolutely.
sleep
Absolutely. And that's
at.
important
And
because you have somewhere to go, you have somewhere to be. It's comfort when you're just starting and you're grateful.
exactly. Thinking back to that, what I could have done better, I did zero negotiation and I didn't even have a Zoom call. It was all over emails. I didn't even know what the coach looks like beside his WhatsApp picture.
Wow.
So thinking back to that, I'm crazy, you know? Today, that would never happen, ever, ever in a million years. But it was a leap of faith, I guess, in a way, and I'm glad I took that leap.
Well, it was more so of your transition. I mean, I think with this podcast, we talk about the transition a lot because it's something that everyone's going to have to go through, whether
For
it's
sure.
in your job industry, whether it's in your personal life with your family, and essentially your death at the end of the time when you
Mm-hmm.
have to transition over to the other side. We cannot escape the transition. So
No,
what
no.
we're talking about now is practice. We're
Mm-hmm.
practicing transitioning during our easiest experiences of our life where we can find trauma, we can find joy, we can find consequences and repercussions, we can find rewards and successes. Regardless of what it is, we have to go through the transition. And you just talked specifically about that one transition that took that one step that pushed you over the edge to say, you know what, I want to do this and I'm going to do it, even though I broke my ankle 3 times and I have an opportunity to go do some other things. I still want to do this. I'm going to
Exactly.
pursue it. That's called persistence. That's called ambition. And at a young age, it's hard to find, but this testimony shows those young people at 17, 18, 19 that when the world closes all its doors on you, there's still an option. And that's your confidence to say, I can go abroad, send in my footage, and attack and be aggressive, not desperate. You didn't act in desperation at all. You acted in aggression. And that's why you were able to be who you are today.
No, and you know what? I love how you summed that up because it's the biggest true. And one thing, these closed and open doors and these transition phases, they never stop. They're still here today. Maybe it's not leaving to UK with broken ankle. Maybe it's a kid on the way, new business or something, but they still keep happening. And every doors I close or open, the next doors seem easier to unlock.
Absolutely.
So for anyone out there, don't be scared to leave your comfort zone. The bubble bursts and there's a bigger bubble, but it's going to be easier to burst again.
Absolutely.
Um, but let me. So after that, year in England for me meant new footage. This time, this footage is filmed in actual country, which is being played by sport. So if I now play well, I get better footage. I can go better. I can upgrade. So I was actually quite lucky as well that I showed a big interest in education side as well. So I actually went to play in a club which is national two divisions up in the south, and I started my studies in Exeter. First 2 years doing my degree in fitness and coaching. This opened a lot of doors for me, both in education and sport. And it really broadened up my horizons now, looking at sport from the educational side as well. After those 2 years, 2 new clubs. Again, same process. New club, higher level. Let's prove myself, new footage. And along the way, my national team coach contacted me to play for Croatia. Now, I was a very stubborn kid then, playing in UK. And going back in Croatia, I felt like I'm better than everyone. But it's not true. I'm not better than everyone. I had wrong mentality back then. And I came to the team, and of course, the way the coaches approached me, maybe it could have done better, but I didn't earn my place in my national team, and that killed me. It put me right back down to the ground. And for a long, long time, I hated the way coaches treated me. Looking back to it now, again, it was my fault. Completely wrong vision of looking at it. I should have been humble to even have the chance to be in the jersey of my country. But back then I was just so disappointed. And today I'm one of the consistent players for my national team, and I love it. And whenever some new kids come and they struggle, I can understand, but you need to be humble enough to earn your jersey, earn your place. And I'm sure many athletes go through the same process in the clubs. Anyway, after that bad situation with my national team, I had a new opportunity and I proved myself. Since then, everything is well. And I just want to say, even when things are important on such a big scale as a national team, like, don't give up. Even if things go wrong, like it did for me, don't give up, get back in, talk about it. The worst thing you can do as an athlete is just shut down. There's so many athletes in UK after their rugby careers. They fell in depression. They lose their identity. There's even a high suicide rate in the world in general. So, like any issues you have, sport, talk it through.
Right.
After those 2 years, I went to do my bachelor degree in Plymouth in strength and conditioning. And after that, today, I'm still finalizing my postgraduate degree, master's degree in science of strength and conditioning. Now, education pathway kind of broadened up my eyes that sport is not going to go forever. Even if everything goes perfect for me, let's say at the moment, I have maybe another 10 years max in a pro division. And that's if I'm lucky, if I don't get injured. And even now in Sarlat, I'm here playing full-time rugby. And in my free time during week, I'm working as director of international sponsorships for the club. It's really helping me do that transition again. the whole transition you've been talking about,
Yeah.
which is going to happen.
Before we get into that, before we unlock the new step, let's go back for a second and talk about the accountability that you experienced when you realized that making it to the national team was a privilege. It was a humbling experience, but during that young age, just like a lot of athletes, they come in with entitlement. They come in with this arrogant confidence, and they hit a wall, and they have to be humbled. And that humbling experience often is down the line more appreciated because we see, as we reflect, all the things we did wrong in those moments. And so these are teaching points right now for those young kids that might, get an ear to this podcast and, listen for a couple minutes and try to take a little tidbit. I think the tidbit they can take is the accountability. Every athlete, hardest thing to do is to be accountable for his own actions. Mm-hmm. I think that we as athletes are the most victimized entities or entertainers on the planet because we often get babied. We often get rewards we don't deserve. And the people who work the hardest don't get recognized. And so when you have that element, you have this, this compensation. When the athlete, comes in with an expectation, he wants to be compensated. He wants to be recognized. And if he doesn't get that, he feels like it's everybody else's fault. He feels like it's, your fault, everybody but mine. And then when you're hit with that reflection, when you get older and you go back and you say, it was all my fault that I went through all of this stuff because I didn't take the time out to just recognize that I was young. I didn't embrace the fact that I didn't know it all. And I think we all as athletes go into this web, this trap where we're young and we think we know it. And we burn bridges, we mess up relationships. And then we get older, we come back to the table. And these people have a certain energy about us. They have a certain respect for us that they may have lost because of our young days of acting and the way we acted when we were younger. So I wanted to make that point to the audience that your accountability early on is the same accountability we all must go through. That we have to see that we make the mistakes. No one else can direct our path. No one else can shape our destination. We are the ones who have to be accountable for every decision we make, for every, piece of energy we put out there. Everyone has an impression of us, and we have to have a good first impression in order to get a second impression. So I want to thank you for that talk about accountability, but let's go right into the sponsorships. The director of international sponsorships for the Rugby Club. Let's talk about that transition. Like, how, not only just how you got into it, but that shift. You got on here, you said, man, I'm exhausted because I'm wearing two hats now. Talk about that.
Sure. So, and everything you said before, absolutely spot on. So I found myself doing my master's degree in Newcastle, just with the border with Scotland, in science of strength and conditioning. And I've gotten scholarship playing rugby for them. They play the strongest university rugby league in UK. So, things were picking up. I was very excited to be there, both from educational and sports way. However, all of a sudden, COVID hit in. Again, new barrier, new problem. COVID hit in and university got closed. Rugby got shut down. So all of a sudden, I found myself doing online university in a country abroad. For me, this was bizarre. So I decided to go back in Croatia to spend some time with my family, do my university online, and maybe, try to stay in shape. As I was in Croatia, I started looking for new opportunities for next season because it was my final year at university. So I couldn't be able to go any further unless I would do a PhD, but that's not of my interest for the moment. I was looking again for the clubs through LinkedIn, through YouTube, email, really any kind of social media. And somehow, luckily, I came across Sarlat. I spoke with the coach. I spoke with the president. President was very happy with the kind of interview he had with me, and he told me, "Look, you're a bright young chap guy, and I guess in a way I am." And he told me, "Why don't you come and make impact on the field, but also on in the company? And I can see you speak English relatively well. You have experience in UK. I think you would be very good in sales and partnerships." So I was thinking to myself, obviously, one day I want to have my business, and this could be a great experience for me from both rugby and work. And that's how I found myself in France, in Sarlat, a city in the south of France, beautiful medieval city, as director of international sponsorships. During the past 6 months, I've been working. So a schedule basically goes like this: morning gym session, after that skills rugby session on the pitch. We have lunch. We go back to the company for a couple hours, and after that we have another training. So the days go really quickly, and very happy at the end of the day to be able to build myself as a person in both sport and business.
Man, that sounds like an exciting transition right there, especially as competitors. I think that the one thing for us with new opportunities is the fact that it's a challenge. We take it as a challenge to dominate it, to find out all of the things that you may not be good at, that you might need to get better at, all the things you're great at, that you're going to dominate at. But also, let's talk about quickly the opportunity that arises from the first step you took. It's full circle when you talk about the transition. You took the first step in your transition, and then you transformed into this person that had overcome adversity, that had been through the ringer, that had finally settled with his national team and felt the results from all the hard work, all the perseverance, all the chances and risks that you took. Here you are on the national team of your country, and you're representing. And now, you go to this place in France, and you submit your information to this club, and they want you to be successful on both ends of the spectrum. Now that opportunity comes because you took the first step.
Of course. And, just to say one thing, with the rugby and university shutting down in Newcastle, there was again big closed doors on me, because top university rugby in UK is one of the, if not the biggest gateway to professional rugby in UK. So for me to be able to be part of that and get a scholarship, I was again on the moon. And what happens? Boom, COVID kicks in, back to stage one. But like you said, from this opportunity, which is closed, a new opportunity arises. Today, I find myself working for a club which during the last 2 years has over 150,000 followers across the social media. And we signed over a dozen of broadcast agreements in USA and Canada. To be here for me, very, very exciting times. Just.
All right. I want to say congratulations. You don't have to be at a loss of words, brother. You're a success. And your story says that, as far as being, home, trying to figure out what you're going to do with your ankle. I'm just going to make a decision. I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go do it. Now, to have a title like the director of international sponsorships, I'll tell you how big that is in America when you talk about that type of title for sponsorships for any big company, especially with one that has, 150,000 reach and beyond. It's a prestigious title. It's a lot of, responsibility, because you got to seal deals, you got to sell, you got to talk to people, you got to be personable. And these are things that you have to transition into when you want something better for yourself. A lot of people are stuck in a rut. They don't like their jobs, they don't like their bosses, but they're scared to take the first step into the transition and go to the place they want to go to, the place they want to be at, and the things they want to do. You're a testimony to that. I want to do this. I want to make that first step. And everything happens after that. After the first step, things start to get better. It may prolong, take a little time. If you can be consistent with your perseverance, But once you are, everything comes when you ask for it. And for you, like you said, the transition never stops. There's always a continual transition to whatever new comes about. You have to transition now from um, going, taking that first step, transforming into a new person. Now you're transitioning again into a business, into a new position. You're no longer a forward or whatever position out there on the field that you play in rugby. You're now inside the office with a suit. You're the director. You now are the leader of a space. That's a transition in which everyone should be prepared for. And they should take your testimony as a perfect segue on how, as a young kid, to make a decision and stick with it, man. And I really applaud you for that. And I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you very much for kind words. But first and foremost, I'm working with some beautiful and amazing people here. It would be impossible to do it alone. And there's other boys also from South Africa and France and Tonga and Fiji, and it's much easier for me to also be part of environment which has other boys from other countries taking the same leap of faith as me. That's the one point I really want to make. Get ambitious people around you, people you enjoy training with, working with. It's much, much easier to stay motivated. And I'm sure, Rashad, you know this. I mean, you've been through NBA. It's sometimes the competitive environment can be very, very toxic. It can put you down. Everyone is competing for that jersey. If you don't have people around you to share your thoughts, to be honest, and to improve and reflect with, you're not going to get very far. And even when you get at the top, you might crumble. So don't be scared to ask. Don't be scared to talk. The sport community is out there. If there's anyone out there who wants to talk about rugby or my journey, because me being from Croatia, people always looked at me, with one eye closed. I was always underappreciated. And maybe that was one of my biggest strengths, because people didn't expect a lot of me. It was always kind of a surprise attack. So if there's anyone out there, who wants to chat and talk, feel free to hit me up always on LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm sure me and my buddies, we can always jump on a call and talk about this.
For sure. And go ahead and share your LinkedIn and share your Instagram, and we'll definitely post it on the link during the podcast. We want everybody to reach out and ask questions, share stories. This is all about sharing. Our podcast here is about listening, learning, and leading. That's what we're all about. So I want to take the time out. I didn't mean to interrupt you, to give you, the final stage. Go ahead and give us your little final spiel on anything you want to share with the audience, any kind of message before we depart.
Sure. Thanks, man. First and foremost, guys, as cliche as this sounds, never give up. If something makes you happy, never give up. And try to really build that growth mindset. You can never be the best. But one thing you can do at the end of the day is reflect on yourself and say, what can I do better? As long as you can do that and find something to become better, you're going to be improving. And that's it, step by step. 1% each day at the end of the year is 365%. Step by step. That's all, guys.
I love it. And I want to thank you again, Filip, for coming on the show.
No worries,
one of
man.
many episodes about transitioning as athletes, as businessmen, as fathers, as mothers, as entrepreneurs, as investors, as innovators. This is all it's about. It's about the transition. And so I want to thank you all for tuning in once again. This is the Transition Podcast, Man to God. Rashad McCants, your host here. Until next time.
Thank you.